And both of you have, as you mentioned earlier in the session, visited the southern border in Texas. Congressman Fitzpatrick, you've said that the caucus is going to shift its priority to immigration once the infrastructure package has been voted on. What did you see at the border, and what bipartisan solutions do you think are possible on immigration?
Yeah, Jacqueline. Well, one of the many things Josh and I have in common, we love and support our law enforcement, and we love our nation's children, and we love the world's children. When Josh and I went down there, we had a little kid. Josh, I don't know if he was 5 years old, cutest kid you would ever see in your life.
So cute,
He,
that kid.
he would not stop hugging Josh and I, and it would just break your heart. Just an adorable kid. And you look at the look on their face, and it just breaks your heart. And then you look at the Border Patrol agent who's walking us around the facilities, and they look so tired and dejected because they're being asked to be humanitarian workers, which they're not trained to do. We've got to fix this, Jacqueline. And this is one issue that I get really upset about because we know what's needed to fix it. We need to come together around two principles. Number one, and in no particular order, we are a nation of the rule of law, and a nation has an obligation to defend and protect their borders. And second is we're a nation of immigrants. Our country was built on immigrants, like my grandfather and grandparents who came in through Ellis Island from Ireland. That's what made America great, is immigration, but it was legal immigration. We know what we need to do to fix this. And we had a group that went down there, many Democrat colleagues, including Henry Cuellar, Vicente Gonzalez, that have very pragmatic approaches that I would absolutely sign on to as a Republican. We can make them bipartisan, but we just got to be willing to show the courage, because that's what's stopping it every single time, Jacqueline, is the fringes that are afraid to even migrate a little bit from their base. You got to have the courage to fix this problem.
And Congressman Gottheimer, how do you think the Biden administration is handling this issue so far?
I think it's tough, right? I mean, I think they were given a tough deal right now. And I also just want to say thank you for having a conversation like this where you can actually answer in greater depth than a soundbite, right? Which is part of the challenge right now on immigration overall, right? Everybody wants to take shots at each other instead of digging into it the way Brian just did. It's very difficult, right? You've got the cartels getting paid about $7,000 to $8,000 a person that they bring up. We know that there's rules in place that if you're with a child who's 7 or under, the family stays here through the process. So a lot of children are actually being used and sold in the process to basically rented to go up with families. It's horrific. The cartels through mules are actually making more money now through moving people illegally than they are from drugs. And it gives you a sense of why there's such a big flood at the border. And as Brian rightly said, we need to have tough borders to protect our country, but also live up to our values. And there's a way to do this, but it's going to take reform. It's going to take us all actually doing the hard stuff. We've been working on this as a caucus for years. We had a proposal years ago that we were very close to getting to the floor. We had enough votes if it actually got to the floor to pass it, but you couldn't get it to the floor because you've got leaderships on both sides wanting to use it as a political football instead of actually solving the problem. And so I think we're going to have to look at real comprehensive reform, obviously protect our dreamers, obviously have tough borders, but then solve, and Brian and I and the caucus have talked about many approaches to actually how do you deal with where the intake is and have due process so you protect the people who need protecting and who are coming up, and especially those children that Brian talked about. It's so heartbreaking. We were at this facility, as Brian said, where it was just children, right? That's all at this whole facility. And these little kids who were 4 and 5 years old who were brought up and just left at the border. But it's the reason their families are sending them because it's so bad where they are that they just want to be part of the American dream and be in the United States. That's how great our country is. But it's a very tough thing that we've got to grapple with. And I think Brian and I and a group of us can really come up with some answers here, but it's going to take patience and political courage. But I think we can do it, and we're both very committed to tackling it.